for nearly 20 years, I've been struggling with personal knowledge management and just the sheer amount of data and digital notes and online knowledge that comes flying your way every day. And for a long time, I'd been incredibly frustrated with looking for information or losing information, and like being like, oh, where did I store that note, or oh, where do I bookmark this, and all of that kind of thing. And more often than not, the interesting things that I'd read, it'd go in and it'd go out because I didn't write anything down. And I tried, various systems. I've tried Notion, using the building second brain methodology. I've used, OneNote. I've used Apple Notes. I've used Evernote. I've used many different systems, and I've also used Obsidian. And more recently, I've really settled on Obsidian, and I've imported years of notes into this. And now I've layered also on top of this Claude Code. And I want to show you this combination because I think it's particularly powerful. And I want to show you in case you've also been in this situation like I have, where you're, in a world of information and you just want to kind of consolidate everything, have everything in one place and really organize your digital life. So let me just show you this method, and you may take something away from it. So fundamentally, I'm using Obsidian, which allows you to have lots and lots of markdown files and folders. Right, and Obsidian basically is just an interface to let you look at all of these notes and folders, right? So I have essentially this structure where it's mainly inspired by a guy called Steve Ango. He's the CEO of Obsidian, and he had a post where he detailed his vault-like structure, and a lot of this is borrowing from him. And the idea is that most of your notes, which are markdown files, are simply living in the root of your vault. Right, so if I was, for example, to open up my Finder, you would see that actually the folder is quite flat. So I just have one folder with all of my work notes, my personal notes, and all of my project notes, etc., my meeting notes. It's all in the root of this vault. But then I have some other folders here which I'm going to walk you through now as well. So firstly, I have attachments. So anytime I paste in a picture into a note, it's going to go into this attachments folder here. I've also got a folder called clippings. Now this is using the Obsidian extension. So if I ever take a clipping of an article, it will then copy that content of the article and it will put it into the clippings folder here as well. I've got a folder called daily notes. Now what I often do is I'll simply click on today's note. So I click on this button, and then if I was to transcribe a journal, which I do quite a lot every day, I'd simply write the time, so 7:30, and then I'd start normally narrating. I transcribe quite a lot on my mobile phone when I'm walking. I'll simply talk into my phone and I'll narrate my day. So today I'm going to go visit my mum, and then I'd start writing all about what I'm thinking about at this time. And this may be to do with my personal life, maybe to do with my work or whatever, right? So then I've got the daily notes, and then after this I've got references. Now references are typically people or organizations that I will link to in the future. So you can see here I've got some people like Theodore, so that's my son. I've got some clients like the perfume shop, like Temple Spa, like Superdrug, and I've got some work colleagues as well, like Sude, and all of these people. After this, I've got templates. Now, when you're creating lots of notes in Obsidian, you don't want to have to, write them all out from scratch every time, because you see that within my notes, I've got front matter properties that are common across notes. So if I look, for example, at people, I have a template for creating a new person. And when I create a new person, it's basically going to copy this outline, this template of the note structure, right? So it includes like the date that I created this file. It creates the category people. It's got a bit called organization where I can put in who this person works for. And then I've also got a field called birthday, which I can populate as well. And then this bit actually uses the basis function within Obsidian to show all of the different notes that have this person, as a field, right? So any kind of meetings or things like this is going to show up under here. So if, for example, I wanted to create a new note using this people template, I would simply create a new note, and I would create one called, let's say, Batman. And then with my hotkey, which I've set up to use the templates, so I've set it up as Command-Shift-T, right? You can see then I have the list of templates that I have available, and I'm going to click people, right? And then you can see I can then just simply update this. So I'd update the date to today's date. I'd update his birthday, I don't know, to the 1st of the 1st, 1980. I would say that he works for, and I'd create a new organization called Gotham, and this is going to actually create a new note, right? And then, of course, after this, I'd have to, put these in references, because this is where I like to keep all people and organizations. So I drag him over there, right? But then, future notes, if I was to write them and I'd refer to Batman as people, then they would also appear here. So that's kind of how I'm using the templates. It's a very easy way of creating people notes or new notes or all this kind of stuff without having to rewrite all of the properties, etc. And then you can see I've got all of my notes, and this is a combination of work notes, life notes, and atomic insights and things like that. I've just put them all in the root, right? So for example, if I go down here, I've got notes from way back 2022, which are blog posts. And back here, I was really into, Marcus Aurelius and all of these kinds of practical philosophies. So I did some posts on the obstacle is the way, and you can see that the category of the note is posts. So really, I use this to differentiate all of my different notes here. So it's either posts, it's either notes, it's either meetings or people, organizations. The categories really denotes what the thing is, right? But then you can see the other properties that I have here as well. So I've got the date, when it was scheduled, the status, I've put it as published, and the source, where I can actually see where the post is. And then underneath this, I've got the actual content of the note itself. And you can see some other examples. For example, I found an interesting insight on the Singapore organ donor policy. So categories: note, topic, culture. In Singapore, individuals over the age of 21 are automatically registered as organ donors. If you choose to opt out of this arrangement, you'll be placed at the bottom of the organ priority list if you do require an organ transplant. And I found that was quite an interesting fact, right? So I created a note and I put that in here. Some other things, for example, so studies or insights, so supervised learning. I just wanted to capture what this was. And then also I have some other notes on things like nutrition, for example, as well, or even history or certain work-related meetings and things like this. So yeah, if I go more further up, you can see I'm starting to capture more notes on Claude. So here, this is one called avoid adding too much context to your Claude, because you'll get context rot, right? And I've got a note describing this here. So how does this link then with Claude Code, and why have I made the Vault this way? So Obsidian recently released the Obsidian command line interface, and what this allows you to do is to launch the command line or the terminal within Obsidian itself. So if I go here, I can actually launch an integrated terminal, and this is then going to pop up on the sidebar here. Now, of course, I had previously already installed Claude, but if I simply launch Claude now, and I always launch Claude, by the way, with dangerously skip permissions, just because this bypasses it, constantly asking me, do you give me permission to do this? Do you give me permission to do that? And I just click yes now. But you see, Claude now opens here, and what it can do is it can search through my notes. It can look at the front matter properties, so these fields up here, and it can then navigate through the graph to see related notes and everything like that. And when you think of just how powerful this means that it has the ability to look through my notes since 2021 to really get a kind of arc of my life and an arc of my thinking and all of these different types of useful things. And that means you can ask it for things like, provide me a quick digest in bullet point format of this week's research regarding my YouTube channel. And I could ask it questions about, arcs of my life over, the last 3 years, topics of interest, how the topics of interest have changed, all of these kinds of really interesting things. You can ask it for the connections between different areas of your thinking, new areas that you hadn't potentially explored but have been maybe suggested, within your Obsidian notes, all of these kinds of things. Okay, so let's have a look. So you see I've got my YouTube Research Digest here. So I've got one which is on the Claude channel opportunity. I've got one on thumbnail neuroscience, and I've got one on Claude updates for ranked video potential. And you can see these are kinds of things that I've been, really looking at this last week. And it's summed it up from the notes that I'd taken, right, recently, which is really cool. And you can see I can also ask it for things like, what are some of the key atomic insights in the domain of practical philosophy that I have acquired over the last few years. And I'll mention that notes on practical philosophy can be found within the category of practical philosophy. These notes can be found under the categories property of practical philosophy. I'm just gonna mention that just to give it an easier time of searching for it, but it should be able to find it regardless, and that is because at the root of my Obsidian vault I've got a file called Claude, and Claude.md essentially helps Claude understand the actual structure of my filing system. So it gives it a way of seeing immediately where are things, and when Claude launches, it will actually read the Claude.md file. So if your Claude.md file is giving it a structure of your vault, it will then give it a framework of where to look for when you ask it prompts like this. And you can see here, it's now found the key atomic insights from my practical philosophy notes grouped by theme, right? So I hope this shows you some of the power of having your Claude Code, integrated into your Obsidian vault. And really, you're not also limited to just using the Obsidian vault either, right? So if you did want to then use Claude Code or Claude Cowork, this also works now with your Obsidian vault. So let me just open up Claude Cowork. So I've got Cowork opened now. And because your Obsidian vault is local, you can simply just browse to the vault, as a file, and maybe you even wanted to create a project on it. So let me create a project. I'm going to use an existing folder that I have, and I'm simply just going to navigate to the actual vault itself. So I've got it within Brain, I've got it here, then within Vault, and I'm going to call the project Obsidian Vault. And let me just create this. Now, as an instruction, so Cowork is not going to read the Claude.md file by default, only Claude Code is. So within the instructions, I need to tell actually Cowork to read the Claude.md file to understand the structure of my vault. So first, read the Claude.md file at the root of the directory to understand the file structure of my Obsidian vault. So I'm just going to have that, as one thing. But then, like you see, if I ask it a prompt here, so let's say, find me the key atomic insights related to marketing that I have captured over the past few years. So if I ask it this, and I'm going to switch it to Sonnet just to be a bit more economical. And you can see it's now working on this. It's going to actually look through my Obsidian Vault, because you have to remember that Cowork is essentially the same as Claude Code, except it's just providing a different interface for coders to use, right? And you can see what it's doing. It's now looking through all of my different marketing categorized notes within my Obsidian. So it's got stuff on the Hem framework, stuff on 1,000 True Fans, and these are all markdowns files that I'd captured over the years, right? So these are all either book notes that I'd read. So you see this, some of these book notes. So I had some Seth Godin books, and what I actually did with those books, I'll just show you while it looks for that. I'd actually taken some of these books that I'd read. Let me show you. For example, Show Your Work. I actually exported all of the Amazon Kindle notes that I'd taken, my highlights, right? And you can do that with certain extensions in Chrome, but I pasted those in here. And then I also gave it just like, a summary of, what I thought about the book. And I've done this with all of these books that I'd read, right? So The Brain Audit, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. And now that I have this, and now that these books are categorized also, with marketing, that means that my Claude Cowork is also looking at these book notes as well that I'd taken, right? So you can see now it's come back from across the vault with 84 files, and now it's synthesized these key insights across all of my different notes. So you see it's like audience and positioning, so stop pitching product, persuasion, content, brand and consistency, and relationships and scale, right? So it's providing these insights, and you can even ask it for things like find the connections between these insights and maybe even like a different area, like, and the entrepreneurship category of notes that I have. Relate these to my YouTube channel creation endeavors. How can I apply these to my life? So I'm asking these quite challenging questions, right? That I'm asking for connections between different categories of notes. I'm then asking it to relate these to my YouTube channel creation endeavors, and obviously I have notes on my YouTube channel creation endeavors as well, like, because my YouTube channel creation endeavors, I've got various notes on YouTube. I've got my actual scripts that I'm working on as well. So I've got my Claude for Beginners script, so this was already published the other day, but you see, like, I drafted this out, etc. But then also within my daily notes, I do sometimes actually talk about like things I'm going to do on YouTube and stuff like that. So it's going to cross-reference, the insights that it's captured before on marketing. It's going to cross-reference those to entrepreneurship. So I've got all those notes on entrepreneurship. Let me show you those as well. So my entrepreneurship notes. So I have some here. And then it's going to cross-reference these to any notes it finds on my YouTube channel creation endeavors. And then it's going to see, like, how does it all apply this to me in my life, right? So let's see what it does. It's going to be very interesting. And of course, it's worth knowing that you can do all of this either within Cowork or within Claude Code in the Obsidian terminal as well. Or you could actually launch up the terminal yourself and, launch Claude and go into asking these questions about your vault. Because your vault is just simply bunch of files, right? Markdown files that had been very carefully categorized with those front matter properties that we'd set as part of our vault structure. And you see, okay, so it's found the synthesis. So the connections are tight. Your vault is telling a coherent story across all three areas. So your marketing notes and entrepreneurship notes are saying the exact same things from different angles. The marketing layer says build audience before you sell. The entrepreneurship layer says always be building your own thing. Your YouTube channel is where those two converge. It's both the audience building machine and the own thing you're constructing in parallel to corporate work. Super cool. And it's got some specific connections. So yeah, I talked about this e-commerce startup called Salt, right? And they built up a bunch of followers before they sold anything. And this maps similarly to the Thomas Frank model of, how he built a YouTube channel on Notion. And then I've got bits on understanding like user personas, so psychographics instead of demographics, right? And then certain marketing frameworks and everything like this, right? So how to apply this to your life? Then it's got also bits here that relate to me. So yeah, I hope this was really interesting, and I hope this maybe opens up your eyes to a potential way of doing two things. The first thing is organizing all of the years worth of notes that you have, right? You can see the structure that I have. I put everything in one folder, one vault. So the first bit is organizing your notes. And to me, this provides great peace of mind. I don't like having things in different areas. I don't like things being messy. I like things being consolidated in one vault. And I've got all of my life's notes that I've taken online within this vault now. And the second thing is how you can use Claude as an intelligence layer on top that can really enhance your thinking, find connections, and really be like an extended intelligence or digital assistant to really help you, and a way that you can integrate it into your notes that seamlessly works. And you've seen that I can search through my Obsidian vault using Cowork, also using the Obsidian command line interface with Claude Code. And you can see just the kind of power that it can have. And I haven't even showed, the repeatable skills or anything like this, or, that you can do things on schedules, etc. But this is really just a teaser or a taster of what you can do with this setup. So I hope you found this helpful. And of course, if you are interested in Claude and everything you can do with Claude, do subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be posting much more Claude related content soon.